Welcome back to the Dopey Show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened when I was actually in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison, you want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So, the story all circles around for a purpose, and somebody doesn't make it at the end of this story. Oh. Okay, just had to make sure something popped up on there. But anyway, it all circles around for a purpose. This entire story does. So, first off, let me say, back when I was involved in all this, it was not like it is today. There wasn't people mixing fentanyl in with stuff. That was not a thing. The only type of fentanyl you saw was morphine patches. That's what they called them back then. And, it somebody got from the pharmacy, that is all you really saw. And I know because at 16 I was driving it back and forth. And from the time I was 16, I'm not saying I was getting bricks of it, but from a younger age, about 16 to 20, there were there were a lot of times in which I cut bricks worth of it. And it all had to go through a filter cut, all had to be the same mixture, everything else. And back then, tolerances could get higher off that because it takes roughly 50 milligrams of raw H to kill somebody when it takes only about a milligram, two at most, of fentanyl to kill somebody. So tolerances get up. But I always have somebody like, well, it must have been trash if he was doing that much. Yeah, because somebody was doing more than you think that it was trash. There's always that one person who's got something to say. So anyway, this particular person I'm talking about, who we'll just call the Beebs, because of the haircut, I'd been in the regional jail for probably, 7 months, 8 months. And this guy comes in, and when you come in, you're carrying your mat, balancing all your stuff. This skinny guy comes in, skinny as a rail, and I don't recognize him. But he's looking at me, looking in my room, and I remember I had a bowl of food, and you don't look in. It's like if somebody came up to your window and peeked through your window. And my roommate at that time, see, there's that Snooky that was in the prison, but then there's this other dude that was in the jail. His name's Snooky, light-skinned black dude from Franklin County, who's funny as could be. Unfortunately, he had the nickname Snooky before the Jersey Shore. I'm sure that made for an awkward, for people to call him Snooky after that whole Jersey Shore thing came out. But, I got used to kind of like the jail, prison way of doing things. It conditioned me more on certain rules, like somebody does certain stuff, you better go ask, hey, what's wrong with you or something like that. And I had 2 years out on bond after that, so it prepared well. But anyway, I'm like, dude, did you see it? And he's like, yeah, dude, staring at you weird. And he's like, you better go handle it. And I'm like, walk in, and I'm like, hey, oh, I know you. You didn't have the ball cap on. See, he had hair like Bieber, a whole bunch of hair, but he always pulled it straight back, so then it looked like kind of like a mullet looking thing with the backwards ball cap on. I didn't recognize him without the hat on. And he gained a little bit of weight. He must have been in jail somewhere else first. It's a dude who I knew. I've told the story about him. The first day I met this guy, me and this dude, Denny, who I call him, who's about 10, 12 years older than me, was in the same halfway house that I was president of. We go to this McDonald's, and this guy gives us a lot of money. He doesn't know us. He doesn't know our last names. It's the first time he's met us, and he's letting us drive off with his money to go get him something. Denny wanted to rob him. I said, nah, if he's giving us this much this time, he'll bring it back again. But anyway, I got to know this guy. Oh, and when we brought it back, he cried, and we had to follow him back home because the car that he had did not have any headlights. And then, sure enough, 3 days later, the same thing. No headlights in the car, and he cried, and we had to follow him back. Now, straight up, this guy, in terms of hustling, oh yeah, he hustled way more than me. But guess what? I didn't get robbed every Wednesday and again on Saturday. I mean, he did. I have more stories about him getting robbed than I could tell you. Ultimately, I'll save that till the end, but he ain't with us anymore, and I'll get to how that happened. There's some speculation on that too. But anyway, I've been behind the veil Like in the Land of Oz, when you see behind the curtain and you realize it's just a little old man back there. It's the same thing with how people bag stuff up and everything like that. And kid, this kid who was like 125 to 135 pounds, but 6 foot tall, looked like a child, skater, looked like a 15-year-old skater. I mean, he's like 18, whatever, but 19, something like that. But he looked like a child, and he had all these tough, mean, bad people coming to buy off of him. See, I didn't deal with people like that, and I didn't deal with people that I had to worry about, what kind of stuff's going to happen when this person gets over. Do I have to, worry about this person snatching something? I didn't do that, but he dealt with everybody, and he hustled a lot, and he got robbed all the time. Then he'd make it back, pay it back. He ended up in more situations than I can count, but this dude was literally doing 40 bags a day. I'm not kidding. And there was this one particular time, there's this guy who was well over 200 pounds came in, and there was the specific ones that weren't really cut much at all. There's been up as high as 93% found in wax bags in Roanoke. I mean, there's a reason there's a book that's, now a Hulu show about our area. It kind of hit all at once. But where it's not along the interstate, people come from out of town and it double, triple price here, as I did and everybody else did on that. But anyway, he did some in front of this guy, and he did like 6, 7 of them at a time. And he's 125, 135 pounds, and this big guy, was like getting ready to put him a couple in there, just to do one before he gets on the road. And he's like, no, you only need one of these. Big guy's like, I just saw you do like 6 of them. And he's like, no, that's me. You need to do one of them. Big guy didn't listen. The big guy fell out on the floor. They was able to bring him back, but okay, you got a seasoned addict that came in and think because he did this. So, it wasn't trash. He was that addicted. He was making that much money. See, a lot of times the ceiling of addiction comes on how much you're capable of getting your hands on, how much trash you're able to put in your body to get as addicted as you are. When you're a dealer, when you have, unlimited supply, yeah, it gets on up there. And I got way on up, not like him. Nope. This was probably... He was the highest tolerance of a person I'd ever seen, and he'd keep it together during the day, but then during the night he'd be I told this before, it's worth telling again. He'd nod out and he'd look like it's amazing he didn't pass from that, but he nodded out in front of his giant flat screen that somebody probably just traded him for some stuff. And Beavis and Butthead, when they wake up on the couch and their TV's gone and they're like looking at the back door with the dirty footsteps and the broken window, and they're like, whoa, I just realized something, Beavis. This sucks. It was literally like that. I wouldn't have told nobody. He told people, and basically his air conditioner in his window in his bedroom, which was a common thing to get knocked out for him to get robbed, had been knocked out. His back door was open. It's like whatever Xbox was around back then, whatever version was the newest one, PlayStation. He had all the game systems, and his big ass TV. Excuse me, I don't usually cuss. Were gone at the back door. Gone. Okay. Now he lives in this little. It's like this little single wide trailer size house that has been split into a duplex, only in southeast Roanoke, the white ghetto. Okay, in the ghetto, they split this little place up into a duplex, and the guy who lived in the one next to him was his friend, who ended up robbing him too. And that was funny because there's a whole other story I'll tell about that. But where he was in the room and he couldn't get him to open the door, and he knew that he'd come in there and he knew he robbed him. He punched a hole between the walls of the duplex and started throwing trash through it. Kind of like, I think that was around the time that Steve-O, his whole falling apart thing came on. And it's weird because a lot of like this stuff imitated stuff we saw. We get stupid ideas from stuff we saw, and I'm pretty sure that's where he got that from. But he like literally busted a hole in this, and that guy moved out of town. Because even though he was little, he did have a lot of friends. Now his dad was involved in all kinds of stuff too. But anyway, yeah, he got robbed every other week. Now he got in jail, and of course, just like I did, I saw him doing it. Now at this time, I'd had my little epiphany that what I'm doing isn't working. I was facing 40 to life, mandatory minimum, on something I didn't do. So of course, I realized, man, maybe this isn't working. Maybe I need to rethink some of my life choices. There was a guy in there, Lil Murda is what they called him. He had a Jaguar. And he knew me, I knew him, he knew of this other guy. We all knew of each other. It's a city about 300,000 people in the great surrounding areas, but like people know each other. Once we weren't like the top nothing, but like on a certain level, you hear different names, certain people. And the murder guy, he was way above what we were doing now. Back then, everything was more expensive. It wasn't like it is today. And murder, he was known for I believe he was getting like a quarter brick at a time, like a kilo. And off a quarter kilo, I mean, he's making a tremendous amount of individually wax bags. Because a wax bag, people think they're a tenth of a gram. They're a 20th of a gram. People say, and they'd swear and everything else. I'm telling you, I bagged it since I was 16 years old. They're not a tenth. Nowhere on the East Coast are they a tenth. I've been in Philly. I've been in Jersey with people that, Tom watched it. In Philly, I believe it was 22 bags to a gram is what they did. But anyway, he hangs out this murder guy. They're like this the whole time in jail. He starts working out, doing push-ups and stuff. Gets healthy. 170. Not chubby 170. Went from about 125, 130. Body is so starved, so it just puts back on weight when you starve that much. It looked healthy. Looked like a normal kid. Before, people called him Skeletor and all kinds of other names. But he keeps hanging with this murder guy, and they keep plotting, conspiring. You see them off the side, they're conspiring. And they're conspiring to sell some stuff when they get out. Now, murder didn't get caught with a lot. I believe some girl set him up. He got caught with like a bundle, which was amazing. That is all he got caught with. Because he was known for doing his thing. He used to. He sniffed a little bit and stuff like that. But anyway, it kept conspiring. And you kept seeing it. And I just was like, man, I know what's happening here because I've done it. I'd used rehab to make connections. I met the biggest blow deal in the city in a public rehab when I was in drug court. He liked to do e-pills. Feds gave him a chance. Federal judge let him go to that rehab, and that's where I met him, and I started doing my thing there. I saw what was happening. I was only a couple years older than this fella, but it was the same thing I'd done, and I was watching it happen. I was like, Lord have mercy. But I mean, he became my friend. I'll tell you, I've got another story. There was a story where this dad and two brothers, they pretty much had an oxy market cornered off in Franklin County at this particular section of it. They had this pill mill doctor, and the dad got all his stuff from. But anyway, I was hanging out with them, running around with them, and the first half of the month they'd be making money, but then they'd use all those pills up, and they'd have to go to the methadone clinic. So he's going to the methadone clinic and getting a prescription for oxy. This dad was, but once they run out, they turn into these scheming, scamming, devious people. A bunch of crackheads is all they are in reality. But anyway, there was an issue where they, I knew I needed to get out of there. They spiked my drink with a whole bunch of Xanax, and I knew something didn't feel right. They didn't get me. Now I got beat up. But I had what I had hidden in my shoe, deep down in it. Now, I even pulled down my pants, shut the thing at him, and said, see, I ain't got nothing. And then I walked out, face bleeding all down my face. I called this guy, the Beebs. I didn't know where to go. I had some stuff on me, but where they put the stuff in my drink to make me in this weakened state so then they could beat me up. I turned around. I'll tell a story another day, but I turned around, he punched me in the face. It didn't knock me over. I felt blood on them. And I remember looking at him for 5 seconds, and he's fat, and he's bouncing like he knows something about fighting, like this, look stupid as could be. And I thought, I'm going to knock you out. Oh, I better sit down. I just collapsed down on my knees, but I'd seen this coming. I'd seen it coming. But anyway, I get a ride out of there, and I called Beebs, and I said, listen, man, I got junk. I said, I need somewhere to sleep this off. I said, you make sure, which looking back in retrospect, him getting robbed all the time probably wasn't the best place. But I slept on his recliner. at his house. He made sure nobody messed with me till I get my bearings back about me. Um, so yeah, he was my friend. Him looking out for that, and for a long time I was, the person who supplied him, and as the person who supplied him, knowing how much and everything that went into everything he's doing, this is the most addicted person I've ever seen in my life. I'd never seen it this bad. Somebody this bad, this high of an addiction. That's so small, so young. I've met old dope fiends that have huge tolerances, but this young fella had a tolerance like something else. And anyway, we get out. I'm in drug court. I'm on bond for my federal charges. I believe he was in drug court too, if I'm not mistaken. He's definitely on some sort of probation. I called him and just check in and see how he's doing. He's telling me that he hooked up with this connection. They had $500 pounds of weed, which is insane. That doesn't really exist in my area. And it, tempting as it was, I'm on federal bond. I'd committed to not doing it anymore. And he called me another time and he told me that where he'd just gotten out of jail, he said that something, but he did a Roxy, shot a Roxy, and that he about fell out and he couldn't believe it. He said, man, I used to do 5, 6 of those at a time and walk around and get stuff done. He said, that about put me out and I had to call the ambulance. I said, you need to be careful. When people get out of jail and they have no tolerance, that's when I've lost a lot of my butt. You need to be careful, buddy. And, we end up getting the news one day. Ultimately, what had happened was this, and there's speculation. There's no confirmed answer about this, and this is what's so messed up, is he got jumped and robbed again, and they beat him with a bat, hit him in the head with a bat. And the people who were with him that night in his house, his little duplex house, is probably 400 square feet or less, said that's something too. This guy had, this guy, first time I met him, he gave us, like, I believe it was something, it was like $6,000 he just gave us, let us run off. That's the first time I met him. This guy had so much money, and he'd lose it all, then make it back again. And he was living in a little 400 square foot, little split duplex type thing. Yeah, so think about that. As good as it was for him, look at how he's living. Shoot. I mean, a lot of these dope people you see, they're living in trashy things and they got a whole bunch of money, but for what? For nothing. But anyway, the people who were there that night said that he'd done some, but he hadn't done that much. That he was fine, that he seemed normal. He wasn't nodding or nothing. Didn't wake up the next day. So there's a lot of speculation as to whether he passed from the beating he took, or if he passed from the drugs that he might have overdosed on. That's something that's still open for speculation with people today. It's never got a definitive answer. I mean, as far as I know, I ain't talked to any of those old people, but it really sucked though. He became a friend of mine. He's wild and crazy as could be. Lord have mercy. And at 16, 17 years old, he rented a garage. I think he gave the money to his dad to rent it. His dad was a hustler too, but he was out hustling it. He was doing too much. And he rented this garage. You couldn't go in this garage. There were no mechanics in this garage. It was a hangout for him and his buddies that he hustled out of. It was just down below a bridge, and there wasn't no traffic. Nobody went back there, so it was the perfect place to hustle out of. And yeah, it got raided, everything else. But anyway, yeah, he isn't with us anymore. That one sucks. They all suck, hearing somebody's past, but it really sucked because you wonder how it happened. And I kept in contact with him every so often. I'd talk to him, and you could tell, like, when he first got out and I talked to him, there was more life in him and everything else. And then I'd call, and then he just seemed less enthused about everything, more irritable. Opiates make people irritable and everything else. But yeah, as much as this guy did, as high as his tolerance got, as much as he cheated death over and over again, he did jail, got himself right. Last time I seen him, he lost all that weight that he put on in there. But yeah, he ain't with us anymore. He's gone. And I'm pretty sure he hooked up with the other guy. They had, the thing going on. He part of his network after that. It's hard to tell. I don't know. It's hard to tell what people do. I wasn't involved, know nothing about that. But, it sucks that he's gone. There's a lot of people lost life in a short period of time. This was before the fentanyl and all that stuff came along. People started dropping, and it's odd to talk about, but Yeah, he was in that jail conspiring with the other guy, conspiring about how they're going to get out and hustle and all this. And I thought, man, I did the same thing. I'm literally watching my life and repeat watching him. I wasn't old enough, much older than him, so you know what I mean? Wasn't like I was some wiser, older person telling him something. And even if somebody older had told him something, he wasn't going to listen because he'd out hustled them. He'd out everything them. He was literally like, I can't tell you, like this guy was nonstop hustling, all day, every day, and everybody. See, if I ever had to worry about somebody conspiring against me, I was gone. That time I got jumped and I went over to his place, I was getting ready to get gone out of there that time, but I felt something ain't right. When I started feeling something ain't right, learned later on they put all them Xanax in my drink, tried to poison me. I made phone calls to get up out of there, but yeah, for him giving me a place to crash safely where I didn't have to worry about anybody trying to rob me or anything. He was a friend. It sucks talking about it, but it is what it is. I mean, it needs to be talked about because 44 personal friend, not acquaintances. Everybody's and it's funny too because he wasn't my best friend, nothing like that, but we were good friends. Like I was just connected for a good bit and stuff, but it's funny because once people die, everybody was their best friend. Everybody was their best friend. If you die today, everybody was your best friend. That's how it is. It's the weirdest sort of concept that I've seen repeat over and over, and it makes you freaking sick. My buddy Chris that lost his life, his girlfriend took his life, ended up in a rehab with his mom, who's a streetwalker, and she's talking about how she couldn't stand it, and she missed it, he was gone, and I'm thinking, as my best friend, I hung around, we were literally everywhere, we were everywhere for 6 months, and I'm thinking, didn't see you once, didn't hear from you once. Yeah, his grandma, your mom, yeah, her, she was, and you're going to cry about missing him. It made me sick to hear it. And the whole time we were in rehab, guess what? I'm talking about Chris, the one who's passed, not the other one, not the Beaver guy. The whole time we were in rehab, I never told her I was best friends with your son. I just didn't say nothing to her. Made me sick. The fact that she had no clue who I was said enough as it was. But it's amazing, how much everybody loved everybody and how much they did everything and they just didn't know what to do and blah 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 and this and this and shut up. So many people just are so full of it and it's disgusting. It made me just quit having hope in the human race. But anyway, that's the point of this. When you get out of jail, when you get out of rehab, if you have somebody that gets out of jail, out of rehab, they have zero tolerance and they go back to using, it's the time to watch. It's the time to be invasive. It's the time to open the door and disrespect people's privacy because that's the time that people lose their life. And that is what I need to say. Yeah, it's not right. Not giving them privacy. They think I don't trust them. You shouldn't trust them because guess what? Hurting their feelings to keep them alive, that's worth it. That's worth it. Your feelings. You know what I mean? F your feelings. I'm gonna make sure you're breathing in here. Today it's so different than it used to be too. It wasn't good back then. It wasn't good back when I was doing it, but now it's something different. It's not what it used to be. But anyway, if you liked the video, press the like button. If not, it's 23 minutes 50 seconds of your life, which you'll never get back. Hope you did though.